Welcome back to my cozy corner of the internet, a space to slow down, reflect, and grow. In this space, I share simple tips and journal prompts that have helped me improve my well-being and give you space to journal, reflect, and apply it to your own life. As always, feel free to share the highlights from your reflection, as well as any kind words in the chat. This is a space for growth and encouragement. Your comments might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. I hope this space offers a source of inspiration and helps you take the next step towards a better you. Today's journal prompt is, what is something unexpected that has happened to you recently? What was its impact on you, and what did you learn from it? The unexpected event can be something good or bad. I like this prompt because I'm a creature of habit. I tend to fall into the monotony of my routines, and that inertia can easily make me lose track of the purpose of my goals. The unexpected is often a hindrance for me, something that shakes up my routine and forces me to adjust my life. It's like a wake-up call, life's way of forcing me to realign myself when it recognizes that I've lost the plot or gone off track. It also forces me to evaluate my blind spots and address the things in life that I've been ignoring. This is a very timely prompt for me. Earlier this year, I decided to start a fitness journey. I've always struggled with weight, but since turning 30, I've found that the disordered eating habits I developed in my 20s are showing up by the pound now that my hormones are changing. 2 months into my weight loss journey, at the height of feeling the momentum of losing the first 10 pounds and being halfway to my goal, I injured my hip. Now, I'm a bit embarrassed by the way I was injured, but for the sake of this prompt, I'll share the story with you. Unfortunately, I fell into the hype of another TikTok trend. I had been seeing so many videos praising the use of vibration plates for months. And for months I'd eyed them, wondering if they were as good as everyone was saying they were. The plates are supposed to help with weight loss, and on top of that, they're great for lymphatic drainage. I'm someone who loves lymphatic drainage hacks. I've tried gua sha, rebounding, you name it. My ears perk up when I hear lymphatic drainage. Eventually, I saw one too many videos about these plates show up on my For You page, and I made the impulse buy. Now, the issue isn't the vibration plate. I'm sure that these plates do all the benefits that they say they do. The issue is that in rushing to buy into this trend, I completely overlooked my pre-existing lower back and hip issues, which I should have known would not benefit from experiencing that amount of heavy shaking. After 2 uses of this plate at low speed for only about 10 minutes each time, I woke up the next day with a striking pain in my left hip when I tried to walk and limited leg mobility. A quick trip to the chiropractor later, I found out I had injured my bursa and it would take a good 6 weeks to get back to normal. This completely derailed my fitness goals. I was 2 months in, the longest I'd ever been able to commit to a routine. I was at the point where I was planning to ramp things up, take my fitness goals to the next level. However, the inability to walk with ease halted those aspirations. Unfortunately, I mentally hit a wall and the diet goals went out the window as well. In the course of time it took to heal, I gained 4 pounds and struggled to get back into any kind of diet plan. It's funny how the body tries to get back to its equilibrium. As my hip was healing and getting back to its equilibrium, I found that mentally I was spiraling back into my old eating habits. I'm still struggling to get back on the right course, but through all of that, I started to see something more clearly than I had before. While it was great that I was finally losing weight, my diet and exercise methods were ultimately unsustainable. I was doing a 24-hour fast every other week, hyperfixated on what I was eating, and constantly in the gym. Eventually, I would have hit a wall. I was also starting to notice an increased pain in my hip from the excessive exercise, but instead of trying to address it, I continued to fight through it and ignore it. It was uncomfortable, but since it wasn't life-threatening, I chalked it up to the price of getting fit. But just because I was ignoring it doesn't mean it wasn't a problem. It still needed to be addressed. The injury just accelerated and amplified it. I had this realization that this issue, along with my other back issues, would only get worse if I didn't address them properly. It might not be something I noticed a year from now, but 5 or even 10 years down could be a different story. It's unfortunate, but sometimes you don't know what privileges you have until they're taken away from you. Being able to walk at the pace I desired and to the places I wanted to go was a privilege I had previously taken for granted. The injury made me realize just how much I relied on this ability. Small things, like being able to run a few yards to catch an approaching bus, being able to take my dog out for a quick walk around the block, the ease of getting from point A to point B, became more coveted when I had limited mobility. I also started recognizing the limited mobility in other people, something I never really took note of before. It's so common to see someone who's limping, or with their gait slightly shifted to one side, regardless of age. I realized that mobility, the ability to walk freely, to run when I want to run, was more important to me than losing weight. While I know that my current level of mobility isn't guaranteed forever, the the importance of holding on to it for as long as possible became evident. My focus now is on strength training and stretches that target my problem areas. I'm also more committed to being healthier instead of just losing weight. While it is a struggle to change my previous habits, every day I take a small step in that direction with the understanding that progress comes with time. While this unexpected event was on the negative side, the important thing is that I learned something new about myself and what I need. It allowed me to see a blind spot that I had previously ignored so that I could address it before it's too late. I'm a big believer in the world conspiring in our favor, and I hope that I can look back on this experience in a year from now and laugh at it, but also thank it for allowing me to be in a better place. Use the rest of the time to reflect on what that unexpected event was for you. How did it impact you and your life? How did it change your routines or shift your mindset? And most importantly, what did you learn from it and how did it allow you to grow? As always, remember to be gentle with yourself as you reflect, and honor where you are right now without any judgment. Thank you for spending this time with me. If today's reflection offered you any clarity or comfort, feel free to share it in the comments and like the video. Until next time, take care. you.